That whole, do you have bumpy bones? It was because there was a 99 point something chance that I had bone tumors and that Tessie was also going to have bone tumors. Last week I promised that I was going to talk about genetics soon, so I am talking about that this week. Genetic testing can be a very touchy topic in the autism world, and I feel like I didn't originally get it, and I feel like in a perfect world it wouldn't need to be a touchy topic. But we don't live in a perfect world. We live in a world where eugenics has been a very real threat to autistics and neurodivergent people in the past. And many people are very much still seeking a cure for autism, an end to autism. And if you're autistic, that just doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good to think that a search for a genetic test for autism for preborn babies could mean a way to stomp out the autistic people of the future. Autism has been made into something that is so frightening that feels like a very real possibility. At the same time, I find myself very skeptical that they are going to find anything close to a singular cause for autism. I think the range of genes that causes people to be autistic is so diverse and varied that I'm very skeptical that that's in the near future, because it seems like there are genes that can make being autistic more likely, but it doesn't seem like there's a hard and fast way to predict the level of needs that someone's going to have, or really whether or not they'll even be autistic. I personally have always had a really hard time shying away from knowledge based on what if someone does something bad. I feel like we need to hold science and future medicines accountable for ethics and for not exterminating future autistic people rather than shying away from the answers of what genes cause us to be autistic. I understand the fear, and I absolutely understand the choice to be against genetic testing. That's sort of where I stand on that. I just feel like the information needs to be used very, very carefully and very ethically, which I understand is difficult because I guess we just don't know whether or not people will be ethical and whether this fear of autism that has been created will continue. Anyways, but that's not the point of this video. That was just a starting point, and I wanted to explain my current, at the moment, thoughts on genetic testing. However, we did genetic testing. We did not do genetic testing because of autism. Well, originally we did. We did genetic testing with Maggie first. So I was pregnant with Tessie. So Maggie was 6 when we had genetic testing done for her. We went with Maggie and we did chromosomal testing. Her neurologist suggested it and then her pediatrician ordered it. So that was how it was done. I remember it was ordered in October because I got the phone call from the genetics office when we were at my sister's wedding, and so it was the beginning of October and they made the appointment for April, so it was 6 months away. And by then, 6 months away, doctor's appointments with specialists didn't even feel that far anymore. We made the appointment, we went to it, they explained the sort of test they were going to be looking at her chromosomes. They explained them like a bookshelf, and like they were looking at different books on a bookshelf, and like they were looking and they'd open the page and they'd look at through every chapter and then every page and then every line, but they weren't going to be looking at every word or every letter. That is, I believe, how they explained what they were going to be doing. For those of you who've had genetic testing done, that's how a lot of geneticists explain things. So I believe it was by every line with Maggie. They thought there was about a 50% chance that they would find something. They believed that she had signs of Angelman's, even though she has dark hair, and she didn't really look to me like the pictures of kids, so they tested for that. They tested for a Fragile X, they tested for a lot of different things, and everything came back completely and totally normal on that one. I was like, okay, so after that, I really didn't expect anything from future genetic testing. We went on with our lives. Then I had Tessie. Tessie's pregnancy was not easy. And then I started seeing Tessie stop breathing, and I don't know. I think in the near future I'm going to make another video talking about Tessie's central apnea journey. I made one at the very beginning of our channel, but I think I need to make one again just to kind of wrap everything up with that, because Tessie's doing really, really well with her breathing at night. She's not using a monitor anymore, and so that is very good news. When we started our channel, we were still kind of in the middle of a bunch of scary central apnea attacks. and hypopneas, which is shallow breathing. It's actually scarier than apneas because it's like your brain isn't telling you that your CO2 levels are going up sort of thing, and so you don't take deep enough breaths. I would see Tessie stop breathing. At 5 different doctor's appointments, I told them that she wasn't breathing, and everybody was like, oh, periodic pauses in and from breathing, totally normal, don't worry about it. But it just didn't seem right, and she was sleeping all the time. Because of her developmental delay, she got sent to a neurologist very, very early, and she fell asleep while he was examining her, and so he sent her for a sleep study, and that was when we found out that she had very severe central apnea and very, very severe hypopneas, and that landed her in the pediatric ICU. I didn't know this, that when we went in there, the nurse told me when we left. Before we got there, they were talking about having to do a tracheotomy on her when we arrived. But then when we got there, she was this picture of health, and she didn't have a single one while we were there. I think because they had an alarm on her, and because every time she would have her breathing would slow down, the alarm would go off, and that would rouse her up. It worked out because she did not need a tracheotomy. But it was a struggle to get her the things that she needed. It was a struggle to get her a monitor and stuff, and I fought for about a month to get a second opinion because they said she didn't have central apnea, and so I fought for a second opinion. We went to the children's hospital. As soon as they looked at her sleep study, they ordered a sleep monitor. They got her in the next day for a sleep study. At the sleep study, it showed that it was in fact central apnea, and the hypopneas were slightly improved. Well, no, the hypopneas were improved so that she didn't need to be intubated or anything like that. Life went on. She had to be on that monitor every time she was asleep, which was a lot because she still slept a lot. At that point, she wasn't on oxygen. In the future, after various sleep studies, she would be on and off oxygen while she was asleep. However, that led us to another referral to genetic testing. In the PQ, she got referred to genetic testing, and because Maggie had genetic testing done, they tested for one gene, which was the FOX2B gene, which our insurance did not cover. I guess our insurance didn't cover it because they knew that the company would cover it. The company that does the test would cover it. The company that did the test did cover it. That's how we got the test done the first time. And she did not have a mutation of the FOX2B gene because they were thinking she had, by her breathing test, they were afraid that she had congenital central hypoventilation, which would have been a very, very bad thing. If she had had that gene, it would have meant she would have had to be on a ventilator for a very long time. That was the best news we'd heard. At some point, I can't remember which doctor it was, one of her doctors ordered more genetic testing, and they sent her, because there was still more, there was more weirdness going on. She was having high ammonia levels in her blood repeatedly, not super high, but still high, and she always has had high. The thing that Michael Phelps has low levels of, she has high levels of. The thing that makes you have cramps. Lactate, I had to look it up. It's either she has low lactate levels, lactic acid levels, she has high lactic acid, lactate. She has high lactate levels. It's like 2 or 4, 2.0, 4.0. It's like hers are way, way higher than regular people's every time she's tested. And so I think that was what got us sent back to genetics. Again, I think pediatrician was the one who was responsible for that. The thing that most people ask is how we ended up at genetics with Tessie. And so I believe, I'm not sure if it was because it looked like she was having seizures. She would do this thing where she would be cruising, how babies do, hand over hand, or sitting or crawling, and all of a sudden she would just fall over and over again. So they thought she was having seizures. It even happened when her therapists were there, so other people were seeing it. She was back in the hospital because of that. I believe that was how we got the referral back to genetics, because then it would go back and her coordination would be fine. She had EEGs, the EEGs were normal. So then they sent us to genetic testing at a children's hospital. That was when they said that they were going to do full exome testing, and they thought that it was about a 50% chance that they might find something. And at that point, I really didn't expect us to find something. I think that they always kind of prepare you to be let down easy for the chance that they won't find something. And I was kind of yeah, we've already gone through this. They already didn't find something. I'm not really expecting you to find anything. And they were like, well, we're going to be doing more tests. We're kind of putting you guys through everything now. And they sent me and Tessie to have a blood test done right then. They had Paul do a saliva test from home because he wasn't at the hospital. And that was that. And I kind of forgot about it. And we waited for the results. Again, I wasn't really expecting anything. Life went on. I was driving in the car with Maggie. We were on our way to a doctor's appointment and my phone started ringing and I looked down and I saw it was the geneticist. I actually pulled over off of the highway. I happened to be right near this like park and ride. I answered. He definitely wanted me to be sitting down. He kept saying that I could call him back and I said, no, I can talk to you now. I have time. He told us that the results were in, and he kept reassuring me that they sounded scary, but they weren't really that scary, that I really needed to get my other kids tested. Paul and I both had a mutation on a gene called MYO1H. Mine was 1 in 100,000, and Paul's mutation was 1 in 10,000. What were the chances of that? The mutations were autosomal recessive. Paul and I shouldn't be affected by them. Only one other family in the world had a child who had 2 mutations on that gene that was known. That they had like 3 kids on ventilators or 4 kids on ventilators with congenital central hypoventilation, which was the thing that we were also afraid of Tessie having. That they'd had 1 child that had died from what was assumed to be congenital central hypoventilation because it was from a breathing incident earlier before it was diagnosed, and that we needed to get all of the kids tested as quickly as we could. We needed to get them to a lab and get them tested because everyone was at risk for having it. Also, did I have any bumps on my bones? And I was like, I don't think so. And he said, because Tessie and I also had a dominant gene mutation on EXT2 for bumps on bones. Such an understatement. Next time we were up there, sometime we could make an appointment to come in and talk about it, but he didn't want us making a trip up there for nothing. And I kept saying, I can make a trip. It was only an hour and a half away. I mean, I've driven to Boston from Massachusetts for appointments for Tessie. An hour and a half is not that far. And that was pretty much it. That was everything. I got the kids the next day in the car and took them up to the lab to get their blood drawn, and we had to drive like an hour for that, for a lab that was close enough to the other hospital for it to be in their hospital system. And of course none of our doctors knew anything about this gene because it was like one other family has it, and so no one knows what it is. I'm trying not to freak out, not doing a particularly good job about it, and we take the kids to get their blood drawn, and then we find out, and I said, so the insurance is going to pay for this? And he's like, yes, the insurance always pays for these. Of course they will. And then I get a call while I'm in Target a few days later after we've had our blood drawn saying that the insurance has denied it. Instead of just doing 1 gene, they've found out that they'll have to do full exome testing for all of the kids, and that's thousands of dollars, and that they're refusing to do it. I've just been told my kids, any of them might have this deadly disease, and that it's really, really important I get them tested all right away. Now they're saying the insurance won't pay for it. I was freaking out because I know that, like, I've seen Sadie stop breathing a ton when she was a baby, and everyone had said periodic infant pauses in breathing, and now I'm just like about to have a nervous breakdown in Target. The Target is spinning around me right now. And so there was a doctor out of the country that was an expert on the gene that I'd been talking to, and he had said maybe they'd be able to test it, but then they couldn't test it because they couldn't get the blood out of the country. Kind of everything was falling apart. Sadie's doctor was able to get her in for a sleep study, which is where we found out her adenoids were enlarged because I called Sadie's doctor and was like, hey, this is it. I'm kind of freaking out. What can we do? So there was that. I've also seen James stop breathing in his sleep a bunch. Those were the main ones I was worried about because those were the ones I've seen stop breathing like a ton. That was the scariest point, really. That was when it's like you're glad you know, but it's also you're just sick about it. Then, because there wasn't really anything they could do, the geneticist just stopped talking to me. They'd never brought me in to really explain the results. It was a 5-minute phone call and that was it. Our neurologist actually called the geneticist and had I believe, kind of stern conversation, it sounded like, with them. Then they sent me a very terse email about like me not understanding things, and after that I asked my doctor for a referral to the other children's hospital that's near us, because luckily we are smack dab in the middle of 2 children's hospitals that are very, very good. And they did. And then I got a call from that children's hospital and they said, is this a second opinion or are you making a change of care? And I said, I'm not really sure. And they said, okay. And then they called me back and they said, is this a second opinion or are you making a change of care? And well, the first time I said, well, it's a second opinion, but we're really leaning towards a change of care. And I said, we weren't really sure, but I'm leaning towards changing to your hospital. They said, because if it's the second opinion, it's going to be like a year. But if you're going to change to us, it'll be next month. It'll be 1 month. And I was like, okay, let's do that. And so that's what we did, which it was like a triage thing. We were told initially that if it was triaged as not urgent, it would be more than 6 months wait. And if it was triaged as urgent or something like that, it would be like 2 to 3 months. So then when they called me and they said they could get her in a month, I was kind of a little bit freaked out. I will admit that. We went to our appointment in a month and I was sure it was because of that MYO1H gene that I'd been freaking out about, but it wasn't that. They basically explained that gene to me, which was really nice to have someone sit down and explain the gene until I wasn't having a panic attack. Basically, that it was an unknown gene. They hoped that in a few more years they would know more about it. No one could really say what it was. Maybe it was totally harmless. All of the algorithms say it's probably damaging. The other kids that have it also have developmental disabilities. That's pretty much it. Nobody really knows. But also but what they were interested in was that other gene, the EXT2. Again, they were interested in whether or not I had bumpy bones, specifically whether the bottom of my femur was particularly tumory. Apparently, that whole, do you have bumpy bones? It was because there was a 99-point-something chance that I had bone tumors, and that Tessie was also going to have bone tumors. Not cancerous bone tumors, but still bone tumors on the end of our bones, particularly on the end of our femurs, but all over. So that was what they wanted to know. 99% chance. There were 4 other people that didn't have bone tumors, and so they thought that might not be correct. And with us, it would be 6, and they wanted full x-rays of Tessie's entire body because the bone tumors usually appear by puberty, and so if Tessie was going to have them, they would begin to be forming now, and we needed to know now if she was going to have them, which I was on board with. And it was dominant, so all of the kids had a 50% chance of having it. And so we did the x-rays, and I was like... more paranoid than ever. Any little bump is suddenly like... Again, there are downsides to genetic testing, and I was totally like, oh no, I won't be like that, because they ask you, do you feel like you're going to be paranoid if something comes back? And I was like, oh no, I won't be. Oh no, I won't be. I was. We didn't hear anything, so I'm assuming that those things were normal. Tessie doesn't have bumps anywhere, so I'm assuming that those were normal. So I guess there are now 6 people that have that gene that do not have tumors. And so that is how genetic testing went for us. Honestly, we have 4 kids who are autistic and me. I feel strongly one of those genes maybe is associated with autism, but yeah, I really wish our other kids had been tested, because I would love to know which of them have, if any of them have both of the autosomal genes from Paul and I, and which of them have the dominant gene from me. But we definitely don't have the thousands of dollars to throw around for full exome testing for the other kids, and the insurance company definitely does not want to do it. And so that is kind of where we are at the moment. And Tessie's breathing is much better, and if she had congenital central hypoventilation, she would not be doing much better. So that has eliminated itself on its own, which I am extremely thankful for. We don't know why she had it. They always said prematurity, but she was a full-term 8-pound 12-ounce baby, so it was always really hard to understand that. It was just something that happened that she had until she was over 3, and that went away on its own. That is the story of our journey with genetic testing. We did also do the Spark program, and I will admit that part of the reason that I did the Spark program was because it is full exome testing. Yes, I asked. And I do want to know if my other kids have those genes, and I know there's a good chance we're never going to get results back, but I also know that we have weird genes, and I feel like that gives us a better chance of someday getting results for all of the kids. And so we did do it. Anyways, that is it for today. If you like this video, I would love it if you'd give it a thumbs up, and if you're interested in all things autism, I'd love it if you'd hit subscribe, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.